It's 6:37. Good morning to you. Let's take you through the front pages. And the Times has Rishi Sunak giving the green light for more North Sea drilling.
The Express says end this farce of 3-hour hold times as the tax office is named the worst offender in a call handling probe.
In The Guardian this morning, ministers are wanting curbs on 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in a push to woo motorist voters.
And finally, The Star. 5 deluges are on their way as the curse of the British staycation strikes again.
Yeah, they've managed to mock up a dog with an umbrella. It looks great.
Summer brolidays.
It looks great. Let's go through the papers in a bit more detail then this morning with former editor of the Daily Star, Dawn Neeson, and writer and journalist Andy Jones. Good morning, you two. Let's have a look at the Times, Dawn, should we? Whilst we pursue a net zero policy, we've given a green light to more North Sea drilling.
Ah, yes, we have. Interesting news day, actually. Not a single newspaper has the same story on page 1.
Oh.
It was a quiet day yesterday, obviously, but we've done the Times, because obviously this is Rishi Sunak, who's up in Scotland today, announcing 100 new licences for oil and gas drilling in the North Sea. But his get-out clause is that we are going to use carbon capture.
Yeah.
Capture even, which is where the carbon is taken and either stored in undersea storage containers or used somehow. So that's his get-out clause. So we can still achieve a net zero by 2050, which he has promised, but we are giving out new licences. Now, this, the Tories, I think, is a vote winner, because Labour are against new licences, the SNP are against new licences, and I think the one thing they think they've learned from the Uxbridge by-election, which was basically a referendum on ULEZ, wasn't it, is that the green issues matter to people, but not because we all want green issues. We're worried about whether we can afford them. It's down to sustainability versus affordability, and I think they're trying to capitalise on that with this announcement today, the Acorn project. But, you know, because Labour have recently gone back on their £28 billion green pledge, haven't they? So yeah, both parties are divided. I mean, you've got Sadiq Khan on one side in Labour versus Keir Starmer in the other. I think Sadiq Khan actually fancies himself as the new leader of the Labour Party, don't you?
Yes.
And the Tories, and the Tories are fighting over it as well. So I think Rishi sees this as a potential vote winner with the next election. You know, everything they say at the moment, Stephen and Ellie, it's like you're just saying that because you want to get votes for the election. Everything.
Yeah, but
call me cynical, but
'twas ever thus.
I know it was, but it seemed even more so this time.
Yeah.
But it's got the get-out clause of carbon capture.
Andy, what do you make of this?
Well, Rishi's putting this forward and a lot of people are getting very excited about it. But, of course, as Dawn says, the election is coming up and Keir Starmer, if he gets in, will possibly row back on this, or we will see Keir Starmer as possibly a hypocrite if he keeps it in. We absolutely have to have energy autonomy. We've seen the gas and oil prices go absolutely through the roof, and I care about the planet. I'm really anxious about with the damage that we're doing and the horrible scenes that you see across the world with temperature and, you know, unable to recycle all the trash that we're creating. But we have to have energy autonomy to carry on our progress as a nation.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Andy, let's stick with you, shall we? The front page of the Mail and tourist tax.
Yeah, shopping, luxury goods. Do we know anything about luxury goods? Buying nice things, designer labels on this panel? Expertise?
Possibly. I'm not looking down at my shoes at all. They did my size, honestly.
They are
You're listening, darling.
Gorgeous fabulous outfits.
No, I'm wondering, right, it's a fancy pair of shoes. How much does a pair of shoes like that cost?
If you get them in the sale, not as much as you think.
No, go on, give me a figure. Give me a figure.
These are Jimmy Choos, by the way, and they were in the sale. I am guessing round about £700. But I did.
If you can run fast, you pay free.
I did get them in the sale. Honestly,
it was worth it.
They did my size.
You work hard, Dawn.
Shut up now. Do you want to talk about other people going shopping?
Not at all. We'll leave Dawn alone. We're going to save 10 billion quid apparently from scrapping what's called the tourism tax. This is where tourists come in, they buy luxury goods, Harvey Nichols, M&S, British Airways, etc.
M&S.
All right.
Luxury goods.
Well, these are the people that are complaining about this tourism tax. So British Airways are complaining about it. M&S is a bit of luxury for me. Come on, I'm on a lower budget than you lot.
Don't lie, they're Jimmy Choos on your feet as well. He's just pretending.
Right, 350 brands are complaining about this so-called tourism tax, where tourists have been put off coming to Britain because they have to pay these extra taxes. The government is saying they're going to get rid of this tax. It's going to save us 10 billion quid, which makes me ask the question: why is the tax there in the first place? The Treasury says for every pound we're going to lose from not taxing on these luxury goods, we're going to make £1.36 back in other means. And I'm a bit like, well, what are the bean counters doing? Why aren't we already getting rid of this tax if we know it's going to save us some money?
Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense at all if it's that simple. Mind you, don't you reckon the Treasury would increase its tax intake if taxes were reduced anyway or flattened?
This is interesting because
people don't think it's fair.
Well, that's the thing. This is the Daily Mail campaign, so that's why it's on page 1. And that's why I'm saying yesterday must have been a very quiet news day because all the papers are different, and the Daily Mail have gone for a campaign on their page 1, and the Telegraph have gone for their campaign on their page 1, and the Mirror have done a similar thing as well with their story on page 1.
And but I mean, certainly, it's with the Telegraph. It's tax again.
It's tax again. There's a lot of taxing. It's very taxing Monday morning. Right, this is 50,000 extra families to face inheritance tax. Now, this is a big campaign for the Telegraph. This story is an additional 50,000 families are set to be dragged into paying inheritance tax, almost 4 times than the government have said possibly it will affect. Now, all the figures, the limit on inheritance tax at the moment is £320,000, and that limit has been frozen since 2021, basically. House prices have gone up, etc., etc., especially if you live in London and the South East and other big cities. So it isn't fair. It's meant to go up with inflation. It hasn't. So lots of middle-class, middle-income people are going to be dragged into this bracket now, and the tax is 40%, which is quite high. So there is a campaign to scrap it, and the Telegraph are trying to actually get the limit of £325,000. I'm not going to go into all this. It's too early on a Monday morning to go into the facts and figures. But basically, it affects about 6% of people in this country, so it's not a huge amount. But the problem with this tax, everyone goes, oh, it's only affecting the rich, isn't it, all the billionaires and the millionaires? No, the billionaires and the millionaires have tax accountants who can get away with it. They dodge it. It is affecting ordinary people who want to leave their property to relatives. I mean, they can leave a certain amount to your other half, and you don't face inheritance tax. It gets automatically passed over. But this is a Telegraph campaign to scrap it, basically. But it's not affecting huge numbers of people.
But the PM there was rumours, weren't there, in the papers a few weeks ago that the PM was looking at scrapping inheritance.
Yes, there was. He did say it was a rumour. It was another. Let's put that out there, see how it goes down with people and see whether it's a vote winner, back to that election again, and see what the reaction is. So whether it'll happen or not. But it does seem a bit unfair that so many people are now dragged into this bracket.
It seems like it would be a popular policy because for a lot of people it is the principle, isn't it, of being essentially taxed twice.
Taxed twice.
Yeah, I mean, you're taxed on your earnings, then you're taxed on your savings, you're taxed on your inheritance, and it's a bit like, how much of my money do you want? And I think, yes, there is an argument about we need to claw back some of the money from the super rich, etc., and even things up. But as Dawn quite already says, all of their money's offshore. It's in shell companies, etc., etc.
Yeah. America have got this policy right. Their level for inheritance tax to kick in is £10.3 million.
Is it?
Yeah. So
well, that'd be all right then.
You'll be all right, just about. Many European countries don't have it at all.
Yeah, ours is about £500,000 in total, isn't it? It's someone cash and someone property.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a child, you got £500,000 per parent or something.
But if people bought homes in the 80s, especially in parts of London, I mean, you could easily be over that bracket, couldn't you? Very easily.
Yeah. So you're millions on paper because your house is worth that. But if you're sort of like an elderly pensioner on your own, by the way, when most people get to this level, they're on their own, they've got a very expensive house, but they're going to get taxed on already tax paid on it, and by leaving it to their family. And
inheriting it to your kids is very often the only way your kids are going to get on the housing market as well. So.
Yeah.
And the kids inheriting it have to pay the duty before they actually inherit it, so they've got to find that money to get the money.
Yeah. It doesn't seem fair at all. Let's have a look at the Grenfell disaster in The Guardian, Andy, and this is what I don't... You have to explain why it's got to this figure. They reckon now it's this whole awful situation has cost £1.2 billion.
Yeah, a tragedy in which 72 people died in that absolutely awful fire that we can't get out of our heads, the images, etc. 1.2 billion in total. So where has that money come from? Allow me to read a few figures out. 291 million has gone on government management of the site. Obviously, it's a huge, potentially risky building because obviously it's a skeleton of what it was, and a memorial. 470 million has gone on Kensington as part of Grenfell Response. I believe that's sort of emergency housing, payouts for people to live, etc., etc. 150 million was on compensation to families, victims of families, and also things like police officers, fire, etc., etc. And 23 million has gone on public inquiry, and then there's various other costs. Not all of this 1.2 billion is public purse. Some of this is other costs for lawyers, etc., for companies that are defending themselves. Absolutely no one has been charged yet, and as far as I'm aware, very little money has been given to leaseholders to swap problem cladding. I mean, sort of before this tragedy, none of us had even heard the word cladding, right? And now everybody's terrified when you're buying a place, renting a place. Has it got cladding on my building? What's the brand of cladding, etc., etc.? There's all these poor people. One, the Grenfell families who lost their loved ones in this appalling tragedy that played out on national news, and two, people left stranded, absolutely stranded, because they've got cladding on their building that they didn't know about. They can't sell their homes, can't get compensation. And for all the noise of the government, we've still not seen any proper outcome. And the Guardian quietly points out 10,000 social homes could have been built with that money and no one yet charged.
Yeah, well, that about sums it up. There's not much more to say on that one.
No,
is there really?
No, it's just an awful tragedy.
You need sorting out.
Dawn, let's have a look at the front page of the Mirror, shall we? And this is a killer dog's plea.
Yeah, this is the Mirror's campaign. As I said previously, it's campaign day for the newspapers. Don't let my son's death be for nothing. This is a story about a young boy called Frankie McRitchie. He was 9 from Plymouth. He was killed by it's an American Bulldog Staffordshire Cross in 2019. He was... The thing with this story, Ellie, this little boy was left alone in a caravan with this dog by his mum. His mum was sent to prison for it, by the way. But this is the dad talking out now about don't let another child die like my little Frankie. We relive the nightmare every single year. So he's joining the Mirror's campaign to overhaul the Dangerous Dogs Act, basically, which is tougher penalties should be considered, enforce the rules to stop illegal and irresponsible breeding and selling of dogs, and a public information campaign. That's the Mirror's campaign. This is one family that's been horribly affected by it, and they're speaking out about the horrors of it. The thing is with this story, what was a child being left alone in a caravan with a 7-stone dog on their own? I don't understand the reasoning behind that. As I said, the mum was sent to prison. And it's, you know, everyone demonises, when you read a story like this, everyone demonises certain brands of dogs. In particular, you know, the American Pit Bulls and Staffies and things like that. And it's like, most of the time, these dogs are fine. Most of the time, it's not the dangerous dogs, it's the dangerous owners. Yeah. And that's what you have to keep coming back to. What are the owners thinking by not training their... We talked about this earlier, Andy, not training their dogs properly.
Now, I think there's been an explosion, particularly in lockdown, when people were desperate to get a family pet, desperate to get out of the house. They pick a dog because they like the look of the dog, or they like the sort of lifestyle connotations of having a dog like that. But they don't think about the training, they don't think about the awareness, they don't think about the socialisation of the dog. Big spike in dog mess being left everywhere by irresponsible owners, big spike in dog attacks, huge spike in attacks on children, and very often they attack children because children are crawling around on the floor, they're the smallest. And I will say, there's no such thing as bad dogs, only bad owners, but certain dogs are bred to be more aggressive. For instance, you can have an Alsatian or a German Shepherd. It's bred as a guard dog. It can be aggressive, but it's bred to guard the house. XL bullies, pit bulls, etc., are bred purely as fighting dogs. And so they have that in their DNA. And it's worth noting, this wasn't an XL bully, but XL bullies have been in the press a lot. It's worth knowing that the original breeder of XL bullies, his own nephew was killed by an XL bully.
Well, 9 people have...
they can be... Once they grab on, they don't let go.
Yeah, 9 people have died since 2021, 3 children, including that toll.
Yeah, no, people need to be much more responsible, I think. Anyway, look, on that note, we've got to leave it there. Dawn, Andy, thank you. We'll see you a little bit later on.
Thank you.